Hi everyone, thanks for joining in. I'm excited to have Bear Carroll joining me. Hi Bear.
Hi, Jackie. Hi, everyone.
For those who don't know, Bear's actually an associated author for Global Girls Online Book Club, and I've spoken to you lots of times before, and you've been involved lots of times in our group, which is really, really great.
Yeah, I've been around a while, haven't
You've
I?
been around a while.
Yeah, at least the last two books, if not the last
Yeah, yeah.
three,
And I think
four.
you're probably one of the very first authors I remember doing an interview with, even, I think.
Yeah. How long have you been going, Jackie, now?
Um, I think in May it was 2 years.
Okay,
So
okay.
yeah, yeah,
I think we might have done three books in those 2 years.
yeah, probably. So her latest book is The Other Side of Her, which I can see your copy there, and hopefully mine's not disappearing. There we go. Um, And just wanted to say to people watching that if you have a question, please type it in comments and you'll have a chance to win a copy of The Other Side of Her, thanks to Affirm Press. Do you want to start off by telling us a bit about The Other Side of Her?
Okay. So the very short version is this is a hard book to talk about because there's lots of things that I can't say, but the short version is that a young Irish backpacker goes missing from Bondi Beach, and her name is Tara McCallan, and the police say that Tara went on a drunken late night swim. But her distraught mother in Ireland doesn't believe a word of this. She knows her daughter better than anybody, and she thinks that that's not true. And so the book starts 2 years later. The mum in Ireland has raised $1 million in reward money, and the truth is about to be revealed. And even though this story is about Tara McCallan and her mother, really they're the anchor points in the story, it's not narrated by them. It's narrated by Mia and Ryan, who are Tara's former employers in Newcastle. Tara was their nanny, babysitter, au pair. She was a really bad au pair. She was
Mm.
really bad at her job.
She didn't
She was
like
much
children, really, did she?
didn't really like children. She was much more interested in partying
Yeah.
than what she was in minding their then 8-year-old son, who's now 10. And even though they were devastated when she went missing, now that the case has been reopened, they're being interviewed by the police again. They're being asked for DNA samples, and all they want to do is move on with their lives. And the other narrator in the novel is a young single mother called Beth. And Beth is fleeing an abusive ex-husband. And when the book opens, Beth's house is being burgled. And we don't know what Beth's connection is to Tara until kind of maybe about halfway through the book. And that's really all I can say about Beth.
Mm,
So
mm.
yeah, so that's basically the premise of the book. What happened to Tara and giving her mother the answers that, she deserves.
Mm. And I have to admit that I haven't quite finished reading the book. I've only, I feel a bit embarrassed to say this, but I've only read a quarter so far,
Oh,
and
gosh, okay.
so I haven't really got
Yeah.
too far. But I am really enjoying it so far. I'm just starting to get into it, and
Yeah.
have loved all of your books. So really, yeah, getting and enjoying getting into more and more of it. And I can see there's going to be a lot of twists and turns coming, which your books are very renowned for.
Thank you. I try.
I'm wondering what, because it's quite a interesting idea at all, and the mystery of the backpacker going missing and everything. What was the first idea you had for it?
I can't disclose the first idea
Oh, will
because it's
that
the
be a
thing that
spoiler?
the reader finds out halfway through the novel.
Okay.
But I can say that 2 years ago during lockdown, my then teenage children were planning a trip overseas.
Mm,
Um, and they've very little else to do, so they were planning this elaborate trip to Italy and Slovenia and Austria. and getting really, really excited. And the more excited they got, the more petrified I got. And all I could think of was, what could go wrong. And then also, while they were doing that, I was remembering my early years in Sydney as a sort of backpacker. I kind of had a permanent visa, but I lived a backpacker lifestyle and hung out with a big group of backpackers. So I kind of feel like I was a pseudo backpacker. But I was in my 20s, so I was a lot older, but there was still a lot of kind of close scrapes. When you're in a city that you don't know, and when you're young and out partying and drinking and, doing whatever, naturally there's risk involved in that. And so I had this dual thing going on in my head, being terrified about my children and also kind of remembering when I was that age and some of the things I'd kind of forgotten. And of course, then when I started writing the novel, and actually even when I was editing the novel at quite the late stages, the coronial inquest was going on to Theo Hayes in the Belgian young man who was missing in Byron Bay. And all I could think about was his mother and what she was feeling and the fact that she was left with no answers. So that's kind of like around the peripheries of the inspiration behind the novel. But the true thing I can reveal when you've read it.
Yeah, I'll have to message you when I've read it.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Yeah. It's a good book to talk about at book clubs because there's a discussion before and then there's a discussion afterwards.
And I like how you say like you were worried about your own children traveling, but then instead of like some mothers might try not to think about it too much, but instead you think about the worst that could happen and write it all down. And probably,
I do.
Yeah.
I automatically, my brain goes to the worst place, which is very annoying for them. But in fairness, they were really young. Like my daughter, when she went, was only just barely 18, and she was in hostels mostly with people who were in their mid-20s. It's a big difference. They were very young, and I can say in my defense, because I sound like a really controlling, overprotective mother, I'll worry less the next time they go. My son walked in the door planning his next trip, and
Okay.
next time, and I'll worry a little bit less the next time because and because we live in such a safe country, although I've set this book here in Australia where something not safe happens, but we do live in a very safe country, and it's always a revelation the first time you go abroad, and you have to watch your bag, you've got to watch your wallet, you've got to watch where you're walking, and there's a whole street smartness and awareness that you need to be in Europe that you don't have here, which is I'm just trying to excuse while I was so worried. Yeah, but I put all that parental fear into the novel.
So if someone's watching, children are going to travel overseas soon, then maybe they could wait a little bit before they first
get them to read this book. But it's not this is sort of like, I guess, rather than a traveling thing, it's a very family character based book, and it's really the result of location and being in a family where there's certain tensions and arguably Mia and Ryan wouldn't have needed to employ Tara at all had it not been for their son. And the difficulties that their son had. So there's lots of things playing into it that result in what happens.
And we've got lots of people watching, so just wanted to remind people watching, if you've got any questions, please type them in comments and I'll read them out, and you'll have a chance to win your own copy of The Other Side of Her, thanks to Affirm Press. Anne Lee says she looks forward to reading your book. Sharon wonders if you did much research for your book.
With this novel, I didn't do much research because it was COVID and I was sort of anchored at home. But I was also, because I was coming off writing You Had It Coming, which was an absolute nightmare to write. I couldn't write a single thing of that book without researching something.
Yeah, there was a lot of police and that wasn't there.
Yeah, there was a lot of police things. There was teenage parties. sexual assault. It was like a minefield, and it was an absolute nightmare to write it. So I think the universe kind of gave me a book that was a bit easier to write, and because I couldn't go anywhere, I based it in and around the Newcastle area, which I'm very familiar with. And so I kind of knew the location, and I really knew these people because Mia, Tara's employer, really was like probably a little bit of me in my 30s when I had the corporate job and I was trying to juggle children
Yeah.
and work and feeling like I was, cutting corners everywhere. And Tara is also kind of me, a younger me, because I would have been an absolutely terrible au pair when I was 19. I would have been shocking. So I sort of felt I knew these characters quite a bit. So I didn't, in this particular instance, have to research as normal as what I normally do. But in my defense, I researched so much for the novel previously. I think I deserved
Yeah.
to have an easy one this time.
Yeah. And Kim says your book sounds great. She's definitely interested in reading it. Jessie
Okay.
says she's looking forward to reading your book. Belinda wonders what made you change genres to write crime thriller. And Anne says, are you going to stick to writing crime books?
So look, I still don't know if I'm a crime writer. I guess I am. When you look at what happens in the novel, I guess I am, but I'm not a hardcore crime writer. I think I'm more a psychological thriller, suspense, but based on real families and things that I think could really, really happen. So I love this genre. Like I really do love this genre because it's very fast paced. So I think yes, for the foreseeable future, I'll continue writing these kind of books. And as for what sort of got me here to start with, I kind of just evolved, I guess. When I look back to my earlier novels, even though they were kind of general fiction, and at the time they were called women's fiction, but there was always something the reader didn't know. And I always remember an early editor saying to me, rolling her eyes at me, going, "Oh, you kept another thing from the reader." So I was always sort of keeping information back, I guess. And maybe that just got bigger and bigger. And then I kind of got to a point where I think I was 7 novels in, and I just wanted to write somebody who wasn't as good as what I normally wrote. I wanted to write somebody a bit more complex. So none of my villains are outright villains. I try and make them like real people, so there's good and bad to them. And that's when I wrote The Missing Pieces of Sophie McCarthy. And I just had such a fun time writing Sophie that I kept going in that genre. And I'm still really enjoying
it. And yeah, you want to keep doing what you're enjoying, don't you?
it. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. A book is such a big thing to do, such a big investment of time. You've got to like what you're doing and like what you're writing, because it takes every ounce of your flesh and blood by the time it's done. I would say my books have made me go grey and given me wrinkles, and it's like they've aged me more than my children have aged me.
And Sharon wonders what you like to read yourself and if you've got anything to recommend to us.
I have read some fantastic books recently. I'm on a really, really good roll. Last week I finished The Only Suspect by Louise Candlish.
Okay.
And that was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. Right up my alley. I love the suspense and the mystery, but also a really good family story. And before that, I read Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister, but which again was very much a very taut psychological thriller with a family you really were invested in at the center of what was happening. And the last few nights I have been staying up late reading this Jessica Detman, which is completely different. And it's Without Further Ado. Have you read it, Jackie?
No, I haven't, but I've read. Is it got a bit of humour in that? In it, I would think.
It's really funny, very perceptive, sharp. I'm absolutely loving it, and I went to bed last night at 1 o'clock.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, luckily I'm nearly there. Nearly there. So that's been absolutely fantastic, but completely different to what I was reading before. And then after that, this is what I'll be reading. Fiona McFarlane, The Sun Walks Down.
Okay, I haven't
I saw
heard
her
that
at the
one.
Sydney Writers' Festival, and I loved The Night Guest. My son has just finished reading this one, and I bought the book at the Sydney Writers Festival, and he stole it and read it first. I've reclaimed it. I've got it back, and it's the next book I'm going to read.
Thanks for sharing them. Belinda wonders if all your books are set in Australia.
The first 7 books were kind of half Australia, half Ireland. And then with Missing Pieces of Sophie McCarthy, I came to just be writing in Australia only. At that point, I had been living here. Gosh, how long have I been living here? It's closer to 30 years than 20 years. And I finally felt confident enough to completely base a book here. And also I feel like I've lost touch with Ireland a little bit. Like Ireland's changed a lot since I've left there. So for the last few novels in that first 7, I would keep bringing up my brothers and sisters, asking them to check random things for me, because I felt I was losing touch with, what I knew my setting to be. So I'm very happy to continue to write books here, but sometimes I throw in, characters from other places, so I get my variety that way.
And are you able to share with us what you're doing at the moment?
At the moment, Jackie, I'm in the middle of a huge edit where I'm turning a novel back to front, and my brain is frazzled. It's about
Sounds
a family
exciting.
of 4. It's not exciting. It's about a family of 4 who go to a concert, actually a Coldplay concert.
Okay.
And one of them goes missing.
Okay.
So, that'll be coming out next May.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I'll certainly be looking out for your next one and be hoping to talk to you again about that.
No, that'll be great.
Kelly wonders how you would describe the other side of her in 3 words.
A missing backpacker. Kelly, that's really hard. $1 million reward. There's another 3 words.
Yep. No, they're good ones. Wendy says her just turned 16-year-old girl got lost in Paris at night, and lucky she didn't know at the time.
Oh my God. She got lost in Paris at night. Was she on a school tour?
Yeah, we'll have to check. Wendy, you'll have to tell us, Wendy, why she was.
Yeah, let's wait to get Wendy's response. But I'll tell you a different story for what my son did when he was in Noumea, when I think he was about 16, I think 15, year 9. He went for a run at 3 o'clock in the morning around the city because he couldn't sleep.
Yeah, okay.
And he did that twice without anyone knowing.
So he was on a school tour there?
He was on a school tour, and he just took off in the dead of night around the city for a run twice. Yeah. When I met them at the airport, his teacher went, they were great, they were fantastic.
And the teachers didn't even know he was out at.
No. I still don't think they actually know. The teachers don't know.
I went to Noumea for a school trip as well.
Oh, what did you do, Jackie?
I don't think I did. It was so long ago, I can't remember. But I can't remember anything too daring.
Yeah, but a 16-year-old lost in Paris at night, that is really, really scary. When the kids were away in January, one of their friends had a knife pulled on him in Rome. So that did happen. And that didn't help my anxiety one bit. Even though people tried to tell me, they said something happened, but you won't want to know. I was like, I do want to know. I do want to know. And then
when they say you don't, no, that's no good.
Yeah, it's not good.
Jessie said, was there any particular author or books that inspired you in your writing?
If I go right back to the start and right back to just the pure desire to write a book when you don't know anything about genre, or you're not thinking about genre, or you're not thinking about, I would say Maeve Binchy probably did.
Okay, yeah.
yeah, like some of her early novels, like the really early novels, like Light a Penny Candle, Echoes, Circle of Friends, which is, the book is nothing like the movie. They all sort of like completely immersed me and surprised me. Like, she didn't always deliver a happy ending. She didn't always. She was just a fantastic storyteller, and I think some of those early novels did, you know, feed that need in me to write a novel. And then when I wrote my first novel, I just wrote about my job at the time. I worked in in the IT industry in Sydney, and I just wrote about a fictional fraud in that company, and pretty much plucked all the characters out from my work colleagues.
From your work.
And I think most people who bought that book were my ex-colleagues to see if they were in it. And really, I guess for my first few novels, I just wrote. I wasn't thinking about genre. Maybe if I had been a bit older, I would have thought a bit harder about genre, because it's all I seem to think of now. And I look at a lot of new writers coming on board, and they seem to have much clearer ideas about what space they're writing in than what I did.
Did you do some training when you first decided you wanted to write, or you just
Training?
jumped in? You just jumped in?
I wish to write, like, because back then, like, there's some fantastic online resources now. I did a creative writing class in Mosman High, which was very basic, and that sort of got me going. But really, learning how to write is the school of hard knocks. There's no there's no do or don't. You know, you really learn from just doing it and getting feedback, and trying to do it better, getting more feedback, experimenting, you know, putting your head down, working hard. But it's really difficult to say how it all comes together. Like, when you see a finished product, it's a little bit like a miracle, because there's so much work that's gone into it and so many different iterations. Even with this novel, which was quite a straightforward novel to write, there was still, you know, a lot of iterations and a lot of changes and a lot of, you know, improvements along the way.
Oh, and I've got a reply now from Wendy about her. So Wendy said it was an athletics tour.
Oh yeah.
And was with a group, but got distracted and found herself alone. Very tall, mature girl, and she approached the police, who were dismissive. So she said, thankfully they helped her when or it's not quite, something about her English. So seems like there could have been a bit of an English language barrier. Yeah. Before, when I've spoken to you about your other books, it has been in COVID, and you haven't been able to do as many, going out and get in the public and share your book. But what have you been able to do this time? I've seen online like a lot of things advertised, and what have you got
I have
coming
been
up?
having a great time and enjoying every minute of it, because it's been so nice to, number one, visit bookshops, because for the last two books, you couldn't really visit bookshops. It was they were saying no thanks, and so that was lovely. I went down to Melbourne. I did an event with Sally Hepworth in Melbourne. I launched the book here with Anna Downs, who's a fantastic writer. Had a wonderful time in Melbourne. Then I went to Canberra. I was meant to be going to Canberra with Petronella McGovern, but she inconveniently got sick.
Oh no.
But the bookseller stepped in. We went ahead, but I am tomorrow night. I'm doing an event with Ray Carnes, who's also an associated author for Global Girls, and it's in Mona Vale at 6:30, and it's a wine and crime night. And we're both insanely excited about that.
Yeah, I really wish I could come to that.
I know, we love wine with books, and you know, we're very excited. And in July, early July, I'll be in Concord, the 6th of July, with Petronella again. Hopefully she won't get sick, or not, she won't get sick. At the end of July, I'll be at the Listening Station in Brookvale with Sandy Docker. And then in August, I'll be in Central Coast and Newcastle.
Oh, nice. Yep, lots of things that make sure you share some of them in
I
our
will.
group
I'll
so that
share
people
them.
know.
Yeah. It's been
Yeah.
lovely to, I know that some of the global girls are coming
Mm,
tomorrow night. I'm really looking forward to seeing
mm,
them.
mm. Well, thanks so much for chatting with me. Always enjoy talking to you.
Thanks, Jackie. It's been lovely. Thank
And
you.
yeah, hope to catch up with you again soon and chat with you again.
And we'll see. I'll see you at one of these events where there's
Yeah,
wine.
I'm sure I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Bye
Thanks.
everyone, and
Bye.
thanks for the questions everyone had.